Welcome to what might just be the most transformative 10 days of your travel life. This is the story of how we circumnavigated an entire island nation in the North Atlantic and experienced landscapes so otherworldly that they seemed almost alien. My name is Danish Khan, and I am about to take you on a journey around Iceland's famous Ring Road. For over a year, our family has been traveling the world and visiting countries across every continent imaginable. We had already checked off 40 countries before we even booked our flight to Reykjavik. But Iceland felt different. This island promised something special and something wild. It promised untouched wilderness and dramatic vistas that would challenge our understanding of what Earth could look like. Our adventure began with a simple decision. We would not be rushing through major cities and checking off tourist attractions from a list. Instead, we would rent a vehicle and drive the entire 1340-kilometer ring road that circles this entire island. We would camp under the endless summer sky. We would wake up to waterfalls outside our tent. We would experience Iceland on our own terms and at our own pace. This video is going to walk you through our complete 10-day itinerary. I will share with you every stop we made and every experience we had. I will tell you exactly how much we spent and break down our costs so you can plan a similar trip on a budget. And I will give you all the insider tips and tricks we learned along the way that made this journey unforgettable. But before we dive into the day-by-day breakdown, I want to share some essential information about how to actually explore Iceland. The very first thing you need to understand is that renting a vehicle is absolutely essential. You cannot experience the true Iceland using public transportation alone. You simply cannot access most of the magical places we visited without your own transportation. You have several options when it comes to vehicle rentals. You can rent a standard car if you plan to stay on the Ring Road. You can rent a camper van for a fully equipped mobile home experience. Or you can rent something like what we chose, which was a rugged all-wheel drive vehicle. We selected a Jeep specifically, and then added a pop-up tent attachment on top, which gave us incredible flexibility. Let me break down the costs for our vehicle rental. The Jeep itself cost us $794 for the full 8 days. The pop-up tent system and all the included camping gear cost us $1,095. This might sound expensive, but consider this. When you factor in that this price included sleeping bags and a full cooking setup and dishes and chairs and a complete camping kitchen, then the value becomes clear. Instead of booking separate accommodation for 8 nights, which would have cost us significantly more, we had the freedom to camp wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted. Now I need to address something crucial about driving in Iceland. The main ring road is beautifully paved and smooth and straightforward. However, if you venture off the ring road, you will encounter what are called F-roads. These are rough, unpaved mountain roads that often involve river crossings. These roads are not for the faint of heart, and they are absolutely not legal to drive on without an all-wheel drive vehicle. The Icelandic government takes this seriously, and they will fine you heavily if you attempt these roads in an unsuitable vehicle. By camping on top of our vehicle, we did not have to book any hotel rooms or guest houses. This saved us thousands of dollars. However, we still had to pay campground fees. Our total for camping throughout the entire 8-day ring road journey was only $150. That comes out to roughly $20 per night for 2 people. These campgrounds were basic but clean, and they provided essential facilities like bathrooms and shower areas. Now let's talk about the currency and practical matters. Iceland uses the Icelandic krona, but do not worry because credit cards are accepted almost everywhere on the island. However, you should still carry some cash because certain campgrounds and small businesses operate on a cash-only basis. We recommend having some local currency on hand, just to be safe. Here is something that shocked us about Iceland. Eating at restaurants is extraordinarily expensive. We are talking about $20 for a bowl of soup. That would be nothing in major American cities, but it added up quickly in our budget. To combat this, we made our very first stop after picking up our rental vehicle, not at a famous tourist attraction, but at a grocery store. We spent $125 and bought a week's worth of food. This single decision saved us hundreds of dollars. We could cook our own meals on the camp, stove and eat like locals instead of constantly paying tourist prices. Now let's dive into our actual itinerary and experience Iceland day by day. One of our adventure was about getting our bearings and setting up our mobile base. We flew into Keflavik International Airport and immediately picked up our rental Jeep. The paperwork was straightforward, and the rental company gave us a thorough orientation on how to use all our equipment. From there, we drove directly to a grocery store on the outskirts of Reykjavik. We loaded up on fresh produce and pasta and rice and other staples. We grabbed some local dairy products and bread and treats for the journey ahead. After grocery shopping, we decided to get a feel for Reykjavik by driving through the capital city. The compact downtown area charmed us immediately with its colorful houses and friendly atmosphere. We could see the distinctive spire of Hallgrímskirkja Church rising above the cityscape in the distance. We knew we would explore this city properly in a few days, but for now, we were eager to head east toward the Ring Road. We continued past the city and drove east along Route 1 toward our first campsite. The landscape began to transition from urban to rural. We passed through fields of Icelandic moss and saw sheep grazing peacefully in the distance. The sun hung low in the sky, even though it was late afternoon because of Iceland's high latitude. We arrived at our campsite as evening approached. We set up our pop-up tent for the first time, which took about 30 minutes. We assembled our camping kitchen and organized our supplies. We made a simple dinner and climbed into our sleeping bags, excited about what tomorrow would bring. Day 2 is when things got magical. We had learned from our research that the best way to avoid crowds at popular attractions was to arrive extremely early. We packed up our campsite while the sun was barely above the horizon and drove to our first major stop. Our destination was Hrunalaug, which is a natural hot spring. This spring looks like something straight out of a Viking film, with its historic hut sitting beside the steaming water. The land is privately owned, and the owners now charge 2,500 Icelandic krona, which is about $17 USD per person to visit. They limit the number of visitors at any given time to about 12 or 15 people to prevent overcrowding. We arrived right at 8 a.m. when the facility opened. We were literally the first people there. For about 15 magical minutes, we had the entire hot spring completely to ourselves. We soaked our travel-weary bodies in the warm water while looking out at the Icelandic countryside. The spring was originally built by a farmer back in the 1890s, who used it for laundry and bathing. Now it serves as a perfect place for modern travelers to experience something authentically Icelandic. After soaking for about 45 minutes, we rinsed off in the on-site shower and continued our journey. We drove to Goðafoss, which is Iceland's largest and most powerful waterfall. The name Goðafoss is composed of two Icelandic words. Gull means gold and foss means waterfall. When the sun hits the mist rising from the falls, it creates rainbows that look like golden light pouring over the cliff. This waterfall is the main attraction on the Golden Circle route, and it absolutely lives up to the hype. For lunch, we drove to Fridheimar, which turned out to be one of our favorite restaurant stops of the entire trip. This place is a family-run greenhouse that uses geothermal energy from deep within the earth to grow tomatoes. The restaurant is actually inside the greenhouse, so you eat surrounded by tomato plants stretching in every direction. Every single item on the menu features tomatoes grown right there on the property. We ordered the all-you-can-eat soup and bread bar, which included coffee for $25 per person. We ate slowly and thoroughly, enjoying the unique experience of dining inside a working farm. In the afternoon, we ventured up into the highlands of Landmannalaugar. This is where things got adventurous. We drove onto F-roads for the first time. These gravel and dirt roads are rough and unpaved, but the landscape they lead to is absolutely stunning. We parked in a lot divided by a small river crossing. Many people crossed it, but we found plenty of parking without taking that risk. We did a 6.8-kilometer loop hike through a lava field and up onto a mountain where we could see a spectacular array of colors. The different minerals in the rock created bands of red and yellow and green and purple. It felt like hiking on an alien planet. After the hike, we relaxed in the hot spring located right at the campground. The natural hot water flowed while a waterfall crashed nearby. We attempted to take a shortcut to our next campsite, but encountered a river crossing we did not feel confident about. We had to turn around and backtrack to the Ring Road. It ended up being a long drive to our next location, but we made it safely. Day 3 was when we truly felt like we were in Iceland. We started at Seljalandsfoss, which is a waterfall you can actually walk behind. There is a short hiking trail that leads right to the waterfall, and you can stand on the other side of the water curtain and feel the spray on your face. The experience is surreal. Further down the Ring Road, we saw a 9th century settlement tucked away on a dramatic coastline. The buildings were constructed using traditional Icelandic techniques, with walls made from stacked stone and roofs made from turf. These structures blended seamlessly with the landscape as if they grew naturally from the earth itself. Our next major stop was Skógafoss. This waterfall is one of Iceland's most iconic and majestic sights. It stands 60 meters tall, which is about 197 feet. The water plunges over the cliff and sends plumes of mist high into the air. There is a trail that leads up beside the waterfall, and if you hike it, you can stand at the top and look down at where the water begins its dramatic descent. Local legend says that a treasure chest is hidden behind Skógafoss. A Viking settler supposedly hid his wealth there, and many people have searched over the centuries, but the chest has never been found. Whether the treasure is real or just folklore, the waterfall is treasure enough. Just down the road from Skógafoss is Jökulsárlón, which is much less well known and frequently overlooked by tourists. This waterfall is fed by the Jökulsárlón River, and it creates a picturesque scene that feels straight out of a fairy tale. The hike to Jökulsárlón is short and easy, making it accessible to travelers of all fitness levels. We continued along the south coast and made a stop at the Seljalandsfoss plane wreck. In 1973, a US Navy DC-3 aircraft crash-landed on this remote black sand beach. Miraculously, all the passengers survived. The wreckage has now become an eerie and iconic symbol of Iceland's unforgiving landscape. The walk out to the plane is deceptively long. You walk across black rock and flat gravel with nothing to look at but the emptiness and vastness of the beach. It takes about 40 minutes to reach the wreck. There is a shuttle bus that runs every 30 minutes if you prefer not to walk, but we decided to hike it along the way. We stopped at a famous photography spot where large rocks frame the landscape perfectly behind them. This natural frame creates stunning photos. We also visited the Dettifoss viewpoint, which is famous for its dramatic cliffs and the arch-shaped rock formation that juts out into the sea. This is one of the best places on the entire island to watch puffin colonies up close. We spent time with binoculars watching these adorable birds dive into the water and waddle across the rocks. We ended our day by camping in the coastal town of Vik. The campground here has excellent facilities, and we cooked dinner over our camp stove and rested after a long day of hiking and exploring. Day 4 started before sunrise. We drove back out toward Reynisfjara Beach to catch the sunrise. Reynisfjara is one of the most famous and most photographed beaches in Iceland. It is known for its striking black sand and towering basalt columns that rise like natural cathedral architecture from the beach. The waves here are powerful and unpredictable. Local legend says that the basalt columns were once trolls who were turned to stone by the rising sun. Whatever their origin, the columns are geological marvels. However, we heeded the warnings about sneaker waves. These unexpected large waves can suddenly surge up the beach and pull unsuspecting people into the ocean. We stayed well back and respected the ocean's power. We drove through the Eldrón Mossfield, which is a surreal landscape unlike anything else on Earth. This lava field was formed during a massive volcanic eruption in the 18th century. A thick layer of bright green moss covers the black volcanic rock beneath. The moss takes years to grow and is incredibly fragile, so we were very careful not to walk on it. We stayed on designated paths and trails. We hiked about a mile out to Dettifoss, which is a waterfall with an incredible backdrop. Behind the waterfall rises a wall of basalt columns that resembles a massive organ pipe formation. The contrast between the flowing water and the geometric rock formations is stunning. Further down the road, we reached Jökulsárlón Glacier, which is the outlet glacier of Vatnajökull, which is the largest ice cap in Europe. A short walk from the parking area takes you right to the glacier. We could see fresh ice formations and deep crevasses. As temperatures rise and climate changes, the glacier continues to shift and change and retreat. One of the most popular stops on the south coast is Diamond Beach. As you step onto the black sand beach, you are greeted by countless icebergs scattered across the shore.
These chunks of ice have calved off from the nearby glacier and been carried out to sea.
They wash up on the beach where the sun makes them sparkle like diamonds in the light. It is a remarkable sight. We also saw seals swimming in the water and sunbathing on the ice. We ended day 4 at Vestrahorn Mountain. According to Icelandic folklore, This mountain is inhabited by hidden elves and spirits who protect the mountain and its landscape. Whether you believe in elves or not, there is definitely something mystical about this place. There is a stunning reflective beach here, along with a lighthouse and a small coffee shop. There is also an abandoned Viking movie set and a campground where we spent the night. Day 5 started at sunrise at the reflective beach. We were literally the only people there. The black sand beach was completely still, and the reflection of the sky and mountains in the wet sand was mirror perfect. We had the place entirely to ourselves for the early morning hours. We explored the Viking village set, which had been constructed for filming and then renovated into a tourist attraction. Because we arrived early, we were again alone in the village. We walked through the reconstructed turf-roofed houses and tried to imagine what life would have been like for actual Viking settlers centuries ago. Before leaving this area, we stopped at the Viking cafe and tried vuflur, which are traditional Icelandic waffles shaped like hearts. They were delicious. We then drove about 20 minutes off the ring road to the port town of Stöðvarfjörður. This town is famous for its distinctive little blue church, and it is a popular stop for cruise ships. We discovered a 2-for-1 lunch special at the Norderland restaurant, where we were able to try Icelandic lamb and freshly caught cod for the price of one plate. The meal was delicious and felt like a victory in our budget travel journey. We drove for most of the rest of the day to reach the northeastern part of Iceland. By around 5 p.m. we arrived at Stöðvarfjörður Canyon. This is a short hike to a stunning spot where a river winds through basalt canyons, creating striking contrasts. When we visited, the water was quite brown from recent rains, but locals told us it is normally a vibrant blue color. We continued to a campground on the northern part of the island for the night. This turned out to be a very nice facility with a restaurant and grassy rolling hills. Day 6 was dedicated to the northern coast of Iceland. We started at Dettifoss, which is Europe's most powerful waterfall. Standing at 44 meters tall and 110 meters wide, it is truly massive. The thunderous roar of the water and the cloud of mist it generates is absolutely overwhelming. This waterfall is more raw and wild than the more touristy waterfalls further south. We ventured into the heart of an otherworldly landscape to reach Mývatn crater, which was formed during a volcanic eruption in the 18th century. The crater contains a beautiful lake with unusual coloration, caused by minerals and gases seeping up from deep within the earth. The area is steeped in history and folklore with tales of hidden treasures and mythical creatures. Instead of visiting the famous and crowded Blue Lagoon, we decided to go to Mývatn nature baths, which is less touristy and significantly cheaper. The baths are fed by a combination of hot spring water and cool groundwater. The water is rich in silica and sulfur and other beneficial minerals. We paid $98 per person and soaked for a few hours. Afterward, we enjoyed treats at the cafe and made sure to ask for our complimentary coffee and soup refills, which apparently matter more in Iceland than almost anywhere else. We drove to Goðafoss, which means waterfall of the gods. Legend says it earned this name during Iceland's conversion to Christianity. The chief threw statues of Norse gods into the waterfall to symbolize the country's conversion. Today, the waterfall is one of the most beautiful in all of Iceland. We continued along the north coast and found a true hidden gem. Just before reaching the town of Akureyri, we discovered a hot spring sitting on top of a waterfall overlooking the ocean. This spot is called Fosshol, and it was one of our absolute favorite places of the entire trip. The hot water flows out of the mountainside and drops over a cliff as a waterfall while you soak in the natural pool. The view extends across the bay to the town beyond. Because not many people know about this spot, we had it almost entirely to ourselves. We drove through Akureyri, which is notable for its heart-shaped red traffic lights. Then we ventured off the ring road to camp in the town of Hofsós, which is one of the oldest trading ports in northern Iceland, dating back to the 16th century. On the way, we passed beautiful river braids, where water splits into multiple channels across wide valleys. Day 7 began early, so we could reach Grata Church, which is the oldest church in Iceland. Over the centuries, it has weathered storms and earthquakes and countless challenges, yet it remains a beacon of hope and inspiration. The simple turf-roofed structure is remarkably well preserved. Our next stop was Fosslaug, which is another hot spring off the beaten path. This one sits beside a river which becomes a waterfall just downstream. A short walk from the parking lot takes you to the pool. We paid just $5 in an honesty box for parking. We arrived around 10 a.m. and had the place to ourselves for a while. But as soon as other tourists started arriving, we decided to leave and make room for them. It is important to be respectful of these natural spaces and share them with other travelers. We continued along the northwestern coast of Iceland and found a beautiful canyon carved over many centuries by a river and waterfall. We hiked through this dramatic landscape and felt small beneath the towering rock walls. We visited a historical site believed to be the homestead
of Akureyri the Red. This legendary Norse explorer established
the first Norse settlement in Greenland. A long house has been reconstructed on the original site, offering a glimpse into the daily life of Viking settlers. However, we found the museum quite overpriced at $50 per person just to enter the reconstructed house. In retrospect, we would have just viewed it from the outside or skipped it entirely. To end our day, we drove an hour and a half to our campsite in the town of Grundarfjörður on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. We grabbed some cheap soup, which was the most affordable thing we could find. Day 8 took us to Kirkjufell, which is one of Iceland's most stunning mountains. This distinctive cone-shaped peak is frequently photographed and appears on countless Icelandic postcards. We climbed partway up the mountain for better views. We drove to a beautiful church perched on top of a hill with a long, winding road leading up to it. The setting was peaceful and picturesque. We drove to the end of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to see the Orange Lighthouse dating back to the late 19th or early 20th century. The coastline here was dramatically beautiful. We drove along the southern part of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula to the famous Black Church. This is one of the few remaining black churches in Iceland and is considered a cultural and architectural landmark. Our very last stop on the Ring Road was Thingvellir, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site located in southwestern Iceland, about 25 miles from Reykjavik. Thingvellir sits on a rift valley created by the separation of the North American and Eurasian tectonic plates. Standing here, you are literally standing between two continents. The historical and geological significance of this place cannot be overstated. After our final Ring Road stop, we had to reorganize and repack the Jeep that we had been living out of for over a week. This was not our finest moment. Our vehicle had become quite chaotic. Gear and clothes and camping equipment were scattered throughout. We spent time in the Thingvellir parking lot, sorting through everything and packing it properly. We turned in our rental vehicle and opted to use public transportation for the rest of our time in Reykjavik to save some money. Day 9 brought us back to Reykjavik. We woke up in the capital city after 8 days of camping and sleeping in our Jeep. Immediately, we felt the difference of being in a real city with hot showers and soft beds. We explored the compact city center, which is easily walkable and full of shops and restaurants and cafes. We visited Hallgrímskirkja, which is one of Reykjavik's most iconic landmarks. This towering church has a striking design inspired by Iceland's basalt lava flows. The architecture is unique and instantly recognizable. We did a self-guided food tour throughout the city. We tried the famous Icelandic hot dogs at Beijarins Bestu, which is considered the best hot dog stand in the city. The hot dogs are topped with crispy fried onions and raw onions and ketchup and sweet mustard and remoulade. It sounds like an odd combination, but it absolutely works. We sampled skyr, which is a traditional Icelandic dairy product. It resembles yogurt, but is technically a soft cheese. The creamy texture and tangy flavor is delicious. We treated ourselves to pastries, including the famous twisted donut and cinnamon buns at Broad & Co. We had lobster soup at Segrifin by the picturesque harbor. At Café Loki, we tried rye bread ice cream made with dark rye. Icelandic bread that was traditionally baked in pots using geothermal heat underground. Everything online told us to try fermented shark, which is a traditional Icelandic delicacy. However, we heard horror stories about the taste lingering in your mouth for up to an hour. We decided to pass on that particular experience. Day 10 arrived too quickly. It was time to pack our bags and fly back to the United States, which we had left a year ago at the start of our round-the-world trip. We caught local buses to the airport trying to save money on our final day. We were heading home forever changed by our Icelandic adventure. Now let's break down the complete cost of our 10-day Iceland experience. This is important information if you are planning a similar trip on a budget. Our biggest single expense was the pop-up tent and camping gear rental, which cost us $10.95. When you factor in that this included all sleeping bags and cooking equipment and dishes and furniture, then the value becomes clear. This was our accommodation solution for 8 nights on the Ring Road. The Jeep rental itself cost us $794 for 8 days of driving the Ring Road. Food was our next largest expense at $620 total. This included our initial grocery run where we spent on 25 plus additional groceries we picked up along the way, plus all the restaurant meals we treated ourselves to. Gasoline was a major cost at $578. Gas prices in Iceland are quite high at roughly $10 per gallon if converted to US pricing. We spent 3 nights in an Airbnb in Reykjavik for $400 hot. Springs and bathing facilities cost us $160 total. This included the entrance fees to Hrunalag and Mývatn nature, baths and other thermal attractions. Local transportation around Reykjavik and to and from the airport cost us $54 parking fees at various attractions, and campground fees totaled $50. Our grand total for 10 days in Iceland, not including flights, was $39.57. When you break that down, it comes to less than $400 per day for 2 people. That is remarkably affordable for traveling in one of the world's most expensive countries. If we factor in our flights from Dublin, the total cost climbed higher, but even so, we visited an incredible island for a fraction of what many tourists spend. Iceland is a place that gets under your skin. The vast empty landscapes and dramatic coastlines and powerful waterfalls and geothermal wonders create a sense of connection to the raw power of nature. You drive through black sand deserts and past towering glaciers. You soak in hot springs while snow-capped mountains rise in the distance. You watch puffins dive for fish and seals swim in Arctic waters. You stand on a rift valley between 2 tectonic plates and feel the Earth's power beneath your feet. The people of Iceland are friendly and welcoming. The landscape is pristine and protected. The outdoor activities are endless. Whether you are a hardcore adventurer or a casual tourist seeking natural beauty, Iceland has something to offer you. If you are considering a trip to Iceland, I strongly encourage you to take the plunge. Book your flights, rent your vehicle, pack your camping gear, drive the Ring Road, visit every waterfall and hot spring and geological wonder you can find. Take your time and do not rush. Wake up early to beat the crowds. Stay out late to experience the midnight sun. Respect the landscape and follow the rules. Be adventurous, but also be safe. Iceland is calling and the Ring Road is waiting. This 10-day journey gave us memories that will last a lifetime. We returned home forever changed by the wild beauty of this island nation. Thank you so much for joining me on this Icelandic adventure through the pages of this script and this retelling of our journey. If this video or script has inspired you to plan your own trip to Iceland, please let me know in the comments below. Tell me which attraction you most want to visit. Share your own Iceland travel tips and experiences. Subscribe to this channel for more travel inspiration and guides from around the world. The Ring Road in Iceland is more than just a route on a map. It is a journey through time and geology and human history. It is a path that connects you to something greater than yourself. It reminds you that the world is vast and beautiful and endlessly fascinating. It shows you that adventure is still possible in our modern world. It proves that you do not need unlimited funds to see incredible places. So pack light. Dream big. Hit the road. Experience Iceland. The Ring Road is calling, and your adventure awaits.